Hello, everyone. My name is Mimi Marie, and this is the Uncommon Nutrition Podcast. And we're here to have uncommon conversations. And I feel like I just want to put a period right there because it's around health, holistic health, alternative medicine, recovery, nutrition, but really it's like all sorts of healing and all kinds of holistic and alternative routes of healing and yeah, so we're just here to have all of those kinds of conversations. And today I am here with my beautiful friend Veronica. I'm so glad you're here.
I am so
I-
honored to be here.
I just feel like it's so perfect. And we were just reminiscing before we started, and we were just together a couple years ago doing one of your retreats. And I'm just so honored that you said yes, and so excited to share what you do with everyone. So will you introduce yourself?
Of course, yeah. So my name is Veronica Paris. I'm an intuitive trauma healer, specializing in facilitating healing for the inner child. And basically that means I connect to an individual's energy body, specifically their fragmented energy, and I connect to them and channel back to the client what the little one is needing at this time in their journey to be seen, heard, and healed for good, so they can be operating at full capacity in their energy body.
It's so beautiful, and I love it because I've actually gotten to experience some of your work for myself personally. And I got to work through some really beautiful layers, if you will. I think that was a year ago.
Yeah,
Maybe, was it a year ago
could have
when you
been
came to my house?
maybe a year.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Mhm.
And like we were just saying, so much has changed, and it's hard for me to pinpoint because I do so much work and so many different things to say. Like, I mean, I know the things that came up for me when we did our work together, but you never know how it's going to ripple out and affect all these different areas of your life. But I know for a fact that the work that I did with you has had a positive impact on who I am and who I get to be in this world. So, yeah. So, can you tell us what led you to do the work that you do?
My own personal trauma. I am the daughter of two alcoholic parents, and I was sexually molested at a very young age, 4 years old, and a survivor of domestic violence. So, after my last domestic violence relationship, I stopped looking out there for the reasons and blaming and the stories, telling the stories about who was at fault, and I started looking within myself. And when I started looking within myself, I did all of the different modalities, right? There's so many beautiful modalities out there. I started with Al-Anon, ACA support groups, clinical healing, breath work, yoga. I was doing all kinds of different things. But the one that really seemed to put a pin in it for me was when my sponsor from Al-Anon had me starting to read books by John Bradshaw. And it was all about the inner child, and it was all about connecting to the inner child. And what I began to realize through the years was I was connecting to my parts of myself in a very unique way. And when I felt confident enough to share that with other people, I realized that it was so unique. They didn't know what I was talking about. They didn't understand what was happening. And through the years, I've continued to nurture it. I continue to grow it, incorporate other modalities like shamanism, soul retrieval, plant medicine ceremonies. And I began to understand what was happening through me was a really divine, beautiful gift. Of course, starting with myself first, and then it's organically started to flow out to the people that I started to connect to, whether it be friends, or then I started working in behavioral assistance and all those types of arenas. So then it started to overflow into my work with clients. And yeah, but it all started with me and me sitting with my own trauma, my own healing.
And that's a continual process, right?
Yes.
I like to remind people, and I have to remind myself that there is no place that we're getting to. Like there's never going to be this day where we're healed and we're done.
100%. Yes, 100%. It's a never ending journey. And I feel like till my
Mhm.
last breath. And the different twists and turns, you know, we were just talking about entrepreneurship, the different twists and turns that I've taken on this now journey has brought up another level of me sitting with my wounding, which may sound the same. They may have the same label like fear or insecurities or self-worth, but it's a different level of being with them. And that's what I have found, that the more I go in, the more it's always there, but it's a different flavor.
Mhm. Mhm. I feel like we could take this in so many different directions, but I'm going to go with well, the most current, I think, because it's where we're both dancing in this new chapter of our lives where we've left the corporate world, right? And we're diving into our own passions and what we know we're here to do. So what has that been like for you?
It's been the full array of feelings. I've had moments of euphoria, I think is how you say it.
Euphoria.
Yeah, I've had moments of complete bliss and heart blown open and gratitude and great, just giving great thanks to the divine, the energy that's greater than us. And I've had deep moments of despair and fetal position and real tangible fear pulsing through my body, thinking to myself, I don't know how I'm going to do it all. So for me, it's been the full gamut. I've had the full range of, I'm so grateful I'm doing this thing. I have freedom. I'm living a heart-led life. I know this is my devotional work is where I'm intended to be. And it's also been deeper layers of more fear and how to be with that.
Right, because like what I'm experiencing is taking this path requires a whole new level of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Like because what the work that we do is so closely tied to who we are, right? So we have to put our whole selves out there and be like, this is who we are and this is what we're going to help you do.
Yeah.
Right? So that is a really, really scary
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. And I love how you said that, Mimi. I love how you said how we are in our devotional work is who we are in our lives, right? And for me, I know without a shadow of a doubt, I am here to help people heal their inner child because of the profound trauma I've had in my own childhood and because of the dedication I have had through the years to no matter what. I mean, it took me some while. I'm stubborn, right? So after my last relationship, I was like, okay, I give up. Finally going in with myself, but my dedication to do just that, to continue to go into myself, has as a result created this life force within me that is very much of service. And how can I help you do that? You've experienced trauma. How can I help you do that through my story and through my education and all of the clinical experiences I've had, the shamanic trainings, like all of these little pieces. How can I co-create with you the healing that I have received for myself?
And it's beautiful because yes, you have a programs that you offer to people, right? But they are also similar to how I work with people. They meet you where you are. So you're not saying you're going to do X, Y, and Z and you're going to get this. You're actually going to say, well, why don't you tell us? Like, if I was to sit down and work with you, what would that look like?
Well, a big part of my work is feeling the person's energy. Oftentimes, well, when I see someone's energy body, it looks very much like a DNA helix to me. And when they have wounding, there's a fragment. So that DNA helix isn't flowing completely through up, from root to crown chakra, there's a fragment, and that fragment is the wounding, it's the trauma. That's what I connect to. So a lot of times when clients come to me, they say, I know I need to do that inner child work, but I don't even know where to begin. And for me, I begin with what you said so beautifully, is meeting them where they're at. And to me, that means reading their energy body and finding the fragment that is ready for now.
Mm.
Mhm. And then I see it, I hear it, and I channel back to the client in real time how old they are, what they're wearing, where they are in the quantum field. It's like they're frozen in their own little time capsule from that time that the wounding happened. And together we begin to reintegrate that aspect of them back into their main energy helix. And throughout that reintegration is when they begin to remember things differently, and they begin to have love, empathy, and compassion for that aspect of themselves that was forgotten long ago.
I love that. So some people might be new to the idea of their inner child. So can you tell us a little bit about what that is and how it plays into your work?
Yeah, of course. So I believe through my own personal journey and through the journey that I now take clients through, is that when we have a life event that happens to us, and it could be in our childhood, but it could be in our young adolescent, or at any age, something happened. For me, it was some more severe traumas, but I was also bullied on the bus, right? So that 14-year-old was also a fragment. I had a history teacher that made me embarrassed in my history class. That was another fragment. So, it could be any aspect of the self that once upon a time experienced a difficult moment that was not seen, heard, and validated. That creates a little pinch off of our energy. That creates the fragment. And of course, as humans, we just keep on keeping on. We keep on keeping on. We got to go to the next class. We got to go to the next job. We got to go to the next relationship. Got to go grocery shopping. So this fragment gets left behind. And I see it as being left behind in the quantum field. So the inner child work to me represents that. Any aspect of the self that, if you think about it now, if you reflect back in your life, if you create a timeline of maybe every 10 years of your life, and you think about what your life was like in that 10-year span, and if there's anything in that 10-year span that you think about in your mind's eye that gives you a bit of a, I didn't really like that, that is a fragment.
I have this vision of like everybody walking around in the world with all these crazy, like fragmented energy fields, and like that's what the world is.
It's true, baby. It's true.
We're all just like
Exactly that. And people call it static. People call it piece of their soul, like in shamanism, piece of their soul, was taken away from their main. So we all have different language that we use around it. I like to use the energy helix because it's what I see when I'm in that space. And these fragments, are literally like little wires that fray out, and they're pinched. It's just pinched off energy, and all they need is our presence, our love, and our compassion. And then they let go and they loosen, and that piece, that cord of energy comes right back into our main energy body. And when that happens, we're flowing more, we're more creative, we're more excited, we're more living on purpose.
It's so beautiful. And I laugh, but it's not funny. But because it's real. Like we really are this world of people walking around with these unresolved traumas. And that's what's dictating how we live our lives.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, it's not coming from love, joy, power, kindness. It's coming from these damaged these moments. I mean, I know because I have a similar story to you, and I know that that ran my life for a long time. And
Absolutely.
I couldn't get it. Like I knew in my head, what it was that was making my life hard, but I couldn't figure out how to get it to stop running the show.
You are so right, Mimi. Yeah, exactly that. And me too. Me too. 3 marriages, 3 divorces from men who were emotionally unavailable, who beat my body because I had an incredibly high tolerance of unacceptable behavior. But it wasn't the grown woman I'd come to be at that point in my life. It was the fragments that had a high tolerance of
Mm,
unacceptable behavior. And we're choosing the men that were going to recreate what they were comfortable with.
right. Because you put yourself in multiple similar situations, right?
Right.
So when they talk about if you don't resolve your past relationship, you're going to end up in the same relationship over and over and over again, maybe clothed differently and with different ways that it shows up, but we're going to repeat the things that we've been through if we don't work through them and resolve them.
Exactly. And these fragments gravitate to what they're comfortable with. So if my
Mhm.
4-year-old who's been sexually abused is comfortable with her body being violated, she's going to choose men who mimic that. But it's not coming from my grown self, it's coming from my subconscious mind
Mhm.
and the fragmented energy part. So in a sense, I tell clients it's like the child is driving the vessel of your life, and we don't want that. It's
Mhm.
imperative to take these fragmented parts of us and put them in their proper place lovingly. We put them in the car seat and buckle them up, say, I love you, but I've got this.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite analogies that I've continued to use from you. Is
Oh,
like, no, we're gonna put you back there. And wise Mimi is driving now.
yeah, exactly that. And in order to get from that, right, the place where the fragmented part of you is leading and where you can say, oh, I see you wanting to drive,
Mhm.
but no, it's me who's going to drive and you got to go in your car seat. In order to get to that place, it is imperative to hold a detached perspective, to practice holding a detached perspective from your own self. Oftentimes I find so many of us are caught up in our own minds, our own world, our own selves, like we don't have any spaciousness between us and the static. So a big
Mhm.
part that I teach is how to hold that detached perspective so we can become empowered from this place that you're talking, wise Mimi, that you're talking about,
Mhm.
and be able to use discernment and understand when it's needed to put them in their car seats.
Mhm. I remember one of the exercises that you had me do. Do you mind sharing like a couple of little like techniques that people can do to start
Yeah,
maybe detaching themselves from
of
those
course.
things? Like the one that you had me do was an inner child writing with
Mhm.
my left hand. I think that was you.
Yeah, non-dominant handwriting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
um, and wise Mimi asked little Mimi certain questions,
yeah,
and then I wrote the answer with my left hand, and it was like the things that came out. I was like, I didn't even know that was in there.
beautiful. Yeah, I love that. And the best time to do that one. So the premise of that exercise is you're basically, as Mimi said, you're using your dominant hand. So I'm a righty. I would use my right hand to ask the question, and then the non-dominant hand would be the answer from the inner child. And the best time to do that particular exercise is when you are feeling activated. That's
Mm,
the best time to do that exercise because she's alive. She's present, she's alive, and she's wanting to drive. So the exercise that I often teach people even before that one's like a little like a step 2. Before that one would be gaining the awareness in our bodies where we are when we're activated. So oftentimes I remember when I was really in my wounding, I wouldn't even know I was activated. I wouldn't even know I was acting out. I would just be acting like a lunatic, scrubbing the oven, or scrubbing the floors, but almost like in a rageful way because I was activated and that energy was trying to get out. So for me, when I teach clients how to begin this work of recognizing these fragmented parts, the first step is to become very somatic with your body, become very aware of your body when it's in that activated state. If it's in that activated state, which often looks like anxiety, nervousness, rage, anger, lashing out, not having control of what comes out of your mouth, saying things that you later regret. This is all activations. To begin to practice noticing I'm activated, I'm in that state, and practicing the pause. So that means recognizing, okay, I'm really freaking out right now, calling a flag on the field, a timeout, and practice the pause, which means take a breath. Remove yourself physically from the environment you're in if you can. Go to the bathroom at work, go to your car for a break. Just remove yourself to some place where you can just practice breathing for a moment. That simple step, as it sounds simple, but it's really powerful. It will begin to energetically create a little spaciousness between you and the activation, the inner child, the fragmented energy. Because until that practice of the pause is skilled, that activation hijacks your nervous system. And that 7-year-old, that 14-year-old, that 30-year-old begins to literally take over your behavior, your mind, and you end up regretting it later on. So this first step is really powerful in helping you get control back of your body, of your nervous system. Practice the pause, breathe, notice, recognize, wow, I'm really activated right now. You don't even need to know why yet, but just to have that pause and that practice will help create the spaciousness.
Yeah, the awareness. I mean, it's so like when you hear people say, why are you acting like a child?
Yeah.
Well, because the child is running the show.
Exactly.
The child is what's activated.
Exactly that, Mimi.
Yeah. So the awareness around it is the first step.
Yeah. And for me, that ties into my way of life right now, right? Being an entrepreneur and creating my devotional work as my only work in the world. The little girls in me, right up to, several years ago, are like, what are you, crazy? We need to work our booties off. We need to get things done. We need to have things controlled. We need to have things orderly. We need to know exactly what's going to happen months out, right? So those parts of me are freaking out oftentimes in this entrepreneurship journey. And it's a practice for me to sit with now those parts of me in a different way.
Right. Like there's always more layers, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what does it look like? What are the results? Right. So if someone's done a session with you or has been working with you for a little while, what do we experience?
It's really beautiful. Some of the things that people have shared they experience is being able to learn about themselves and what is really going on within their energy body. They've always blamed themselves. They felt very imperfect. They have felt like they just can't get it right. What's wrong with me? All these types of things. And through the healing work, that has shifted into being more compassionate with themselves, because what they're realizing is they're sitting with a little 5-year-old or they're sitting with a little 3-year-old. And, I have them find their pictures. Go find your picture of you in that beautiful Pocahontas bathing suit that you remembered, right? So they find these pictures and we begin to cultivate a new relationship with their inner child, which is really with themselves. and they learn a level of self-love and love and compassion that oftentimes they have never received before. They weren't modeled it by their parents, and now they're learning how to cultivate it for themselves through what a lot of people call reparenting these parts of
Yeah.
themselves.
It's so valuable. I mean, probably the majority of us need to be reparented, right? Because so
Yeah.
many of us have gone through experiences, our traumatic experiences, and not that our parents were bad, they did the best they could, right? But we have a lot of trauma from how we were raised and things that our parents did, and to be able to separate that and give ourselves what we didn't get
Yeah.
is huge.
Yeah. And you've touched on something really important, Mimi. And that was that you said it's not about blaming our parents. They did the best that they could. A lot of times clients will have that hesitation because they love their parents so much. And I think, I don't want to blame my parents. And this work is never about blaming. It's never about shaming. It is never about any of that, because I believe that they've done and we all do the best that we can. Until we know better, we do better. And we get to recognize that there were areas in our lives that needed a little more. And we get to step into providing that for ourselves, and no longer looking out there at the partner or the parent or the child to fill that for us. We get to cultivate that level of love and self-nurturing and self-empowerment for ourselves. So it's always accessible. It's always readily accessible for us.
It's so beautiful. I mean, that's been so key for me in the last, well, probably 10 years but even more so in the last few years, is really, like you said, not reaching out there for what we need inside, but becoming that for myself. And I guess it is reparenting,
Yeah.
but it has given me so much freedom from the past, freedom in how I live my life now and the choices that I make. Yeah. And then, when I did my session with you, I had a beautiful experience with my dad
Yeah.
and my mom too. But I wasn't expecting that.
The dad?
My dad,
Oh,
yeah, I
wow.
wasn't expecting my dad to come through. And like, it's just so cool because now he gets to be just my guardian angel,
Yeah. And what I have found is the more that we do this healing work, the more organically it unfolds, where our own intuitive healing gifts begin to flourish. They begin to grow. They begin to develop, where we begin to feel things. We begin to hear things. We begin to sense things for ourselves and for others. We become healers. First, of course, for ourselves, and then outwards, like you with your practice now and being the healer. And we get to connect to these beautiful energies like your beautiful dad on a regular, and utilize that connection, because it's different now. We're different now. They're different now. So it's a different connection, and we get to explore that energetically and spiritually, like what that means for us now that they're not here in the physical realm. My mother died of cirrhosis when I was 21. And I have so much regret that I was not able to connect with her in so many ways in the physical while she was still alive. And I miss her so much. And through my own spiritual journey and my own inner healing, I've connected to her in such beautiful, profound ways that it's a gift. It's a gift that we get to have if we are willing to come out of here and drop more into our hearts, and together we can have a beautiful discernment of having a heart-led life, but also utilizing the beautiful brain and different new beautiful experiences.
Yeah, I love how you said, I love how you touched on what one of the things that it makes available is being able to become someone for others, to be able to offer our gifts to the world. And that can look different for everybody, right? It doesn't mean doing energy work for others, or a healer can be so many things. For me, I'm a nutritionist right now, and that could, like how you said, that could evolve, into something else later. But right now, that's what it looks like in the world. And I know that I wouldn't even be doing this podcast. Like, I wouldn't be doing anything that I'm doing now if I hadn't done the work to get here.
Yeah.
Because I just had too many things going on in my head that were in my way. And I had to really peel back a lot of layers to get to the point where I'm ready,
Yeah.
but it's so worth it. Like, even in the midst of all the fear and all of the things that we have to go through to get to our vision, right? Because this for me is a vision that I've had for a long time. But it's so worth it.
I agree. It's worth it. And the thing that I'm finding is I get to decide, I get to choose. Whereas before, being someone, the recipient of multiple traumas, and having that programming in my being, in my energy body, in my subconscious mind, and all the different aspects of Veronica, I was powerless in a sense to those things that had happened to me. So through my healing journey, it's really through me choosing my healing journey, it's really become the path of empowerment for my own self, of setting my own self free and realizing that I get to choose. I get to choose. I know the road is hard sometimes of doing the inner work and the inner healing work. And I also know the reward is profoundly beautiful. And it has shifted my perception from being someone who's been the recipient of multiple traumas to being someone who has healed multiple traumas and now helps others do the same. It's a life of empowerment because I've chose it. And it also I'm creating my reality. My choices are creating a better outcome for myself. I could have been on husband 38 by now, which is very possible. Had I kept going on that same path. But something deep within me came knocking and said, stop, just stop, practice the pause and stop and look at your life, but look at it from the lens of it going within here and not out there for something to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like to point out and say too that this never goes away. Yeah. So I don't want to give the idea, again, like we were saying at the beginning, that there's no place to get to, right? That all of a sudden one day you're going to be cured.
Yeah.
Like, it's always going to be there. And then you get a choice.
Yeah, it's always there. And giving myself permission to be in my truth fully. Whether it be a post on social media, like I was sharing earlier about I'm exhausted some days, I'm tired, I don't want to do this anymore, right? And being real with myself and honest with myself and others is my dedication to how I show up in my life. It's real, it's truth, and it's not always easy. You're right, Mimi, and it's all these different layers, and I get to practice holding grace with myself and learning more about myself. And maybe something that I used to do 5 years ago that worked doesn't work anymore for me. And I'm ready for some other type of support or healing or love. So it's a never ending learning of the self.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there any last things that you want to share or say about anything that we talked about or anything that you do?
Wow. I would say that for anyone who is on this path, for anyone who is on this journey, to hear the survivors of traumas reflect back to you that you are not alone. That whether you've had significant trauma or whether you feel like you've only had bumpy roads, it's all significant, it's all important. And to hear, for me personally, say that you're not alone in the journey, and that in itself is a big choice. I oftentimes in my life have felt I was all alone and I couldn't share, I couldn't possibly tell people about my story or what my feelings were. So to muster up the courage and the bravery, as Brene Brown says, to step into the arena and to really allow yourself to be seen by those who are worthy of seeing you, I think is a really important first step. In the healing journey and in showing up for yourself and choosing something different for yourself.
That's so beautiful. I'm so glad you said that, because that's one of the things that I say on the notes of this show, is that you're not alone. And that's the whole point of sharing these stories and sharing other beautiful people that are doing their work, excuse me, that are doing their work in the world, is to let people know that they're not alone. Because often when we're in the beginning of our journey, it feels very alone. It feels like we're the only one that's been through this and there's no one that could possibly understand. So thank you for saying that. And yeah, like, to reach out and find the people and find the stories and find the methods and find the things that work for you and that you're comfortable with. Because especially now, we live in such a time when there's just so many different modalities out there and so many things that we can do to heal. So
yeah, and I would add to that to start with wherever it feels like there's a resonance, wherever it feels like it feels good. If Mimi feels good for you, schedule the free consultation, schedule the connection with her, because while it may not lead to where you think it will lead, it'll get you to exactly where you are intended to go for the next step of your journey.
yeah.
And it all starts there with that one little baby step of listening to your heart and taking that deep breath and mustering up the courage, sending the message or making the call or going to the support group or whatever it looks like for you.
Yeah.
Your inner child and the wounded parts will be applauding you in the background, because they'll be so happy that you are stepping in for the collective of you.
Yeah. And that's also a good place to start, with listening to yourself, right? If you're reaching out and having consults with people and trying to find someone to work with, your body's going to tell you. But also, like, the people, like, I know for me, if someone comes and does a consult with me and I don't feel like I can help them, I'm going to tell them that. I'm going to be honest with them and I'm going to point them somewhere else.
Yeah.
So, those are all just things to really check in about. But listen to yourself, because
I love that, Mimi.
And if you feel called to talk to Veronica, I'm going to put all of her information in the notes of this show. It's veronicaparis.com, right?
It is, yeah.
And she shares amazing posts on social media. So you can go on there on Instagram and Facebook and get a taste of her work and what she does. She's incredible. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for being on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you all for listening. Until next time.